Guys, this is Riya Deshwal. You're back on my channel, Crux of English, and today we're going to talk about English literature through ages and what are the ages that are considered in English literature when we actually teach English literature. We have actually the first starting point of any preparation for English literature is always to read about the ages, because it's very important in the consideration that whenever you read about a writer or a work, you always have to consider the background that the writer or the work is coming from, because the political, the historical, the economical background that the work is written in is very important, because it actually changes the mindset of the person who's writing the work. It changes the perspective of theirs, and always there is the themes of the work are always related to what the ages was at that particular time and the things that were happening in that time period. So we are going to go through the ages, and I've made a PPT here so that it's easier for you guys to understand. We're going to go through every age one by one in detail about the historical background, the political background, what were the literary characteristics of that particular age, and the major works that were written in that time period, or what were the writers, the major writers that you can read. So this is the background, and if you want me to go through every age one by one in detail, please comment down below, and I'll start from the Old English, and I'll go through to the contemporary period, the present period that we are living in, which is postmodern, and we are going to go through it one by one. So let's just start. So this is the first let's just see the timeline of what the ages are. The first age that we consider is Old English, which is the time period of when there were like Anglo-Saxons and Anglo-Normans. So this is Old English. The first part is it's Old English. Here you can see that, and then Old English is from 450 AD to 1066 AD. Then we have English, Middle English, which exists from 1066 to 1500 AD. In this time period, you see Age of Chaucer also, who we all know that Chaucer is the father of English literature. This is considered somewhere the point where written English actually came into play, literature actually came into play majorly. Then we have English Renaissance. Renaissance is considered, as the word Renaissance suggests, it's considered the age where everything was revived. Okay, so the age of Renaissance exists from 1500 to 1660 AD. Then we have Puritan. Puritan is the age from 1653 to 1660. Then Restoration, 1660 to 1700. We are going to discuss why it's called Restoration age later when we talk about Restoration. Then there is 18th century, which existed from 1700s to 1798. Then we have Romanticism, which is from 1798 to 1837. Then we have Victorian, which is 1837 to 1901. Then we have modern literature, which exists from 1901 to 1940. We have postmoderns, which exists from 1940 to 2000, and then contemporary time period that we are actually living in. Okay, so now let's move on. I hope you're making notes, because this is very important for you to actually make notes of, otherwise you'll have trouble understanding what is going on. So let's just go on with the next one. Okay, so first let's talk about Old English literature. So this was the time period when the Germanic tribes, the Anglo-Saxons and Jews, they were actually coming to Britain. They were transitioning into Britain, and they were there were invasions. There were also invasions of Vikings, and so like there was the whole change of structure from Britain to now we had Germanic tribes. So in this, what happened was, obviously because they were trying to take control of Britain, there was a lot of warfare and there was a lot of territorial dispute that we see. Then we have it's also period is also characterized with various kingdoms that we see, which is Wessex, Mercia and Northumbrian. Then we have, obviously there was territorial disputes and everyone was trying to get their own territory. We also see there are complex structures of kings and nobles. See, to be very honest, this from UGC net perspective, this particular age is not that important. You should not deep dive into this age. You should know the structure of this age, because it is important for you to understand that this is the basic structure from where the English literature is built. So you need to understand this age from that perspective, but to go deep into detail of what happened and where happened, I don't think that's very important. You just need to know the structure of Old English literature. Then we have, so let's talk about a little about the literary characteristics of this age. We have obviously, I just told you, there was the migration of Germanic tribes to England, and this encompasses the starting of Middle Ages. That's how the Middle Ages started. This was the Old English, and in this period what you'll see is there was a lot of oral tradition in literature. Basically a lot of written literature, English literature, was not being written. There was not a lot of particularly written English literature. Everything was existing in the oral traditions. So this is what Old English exists. Also, what you need to see is, if you have read Canterbury Tales or the prologue to Canterbury Tales, which I think everyone does in their bachelor's or their master's, and if you're preparing for UGC NET, I think Canterbury Tales is one of the most important books you have to go through. It is the basic structure of English literature, and if you have gone through Canterbury Tales, you know what I'm talking about when I say Old English is a little different, and the words, the structure of the sentences, they're a little different, and you need to understand that, and you need to see how they are. So that, and then we have so literature of this particular age, the Anglo-Saxons, it was basically made of alliterations, kennings, and strong rhythm. So there were more rhythmic works than any other, and alliteration was constantly repeated in all of the works. The notable works of this age was Beowulf. Beowulf we've already everyone has heard of. Again, I don't think it is very important for you to get into details of this particular work from UGC NET perspective, because it is not an important work, and any work of Old English literature is not that important. What you need to consider and what you need to focus on is more of the periods that came after this. So let's go on with that. So now we are talking about the Middle English period, which started with the Norman conquest of William the Conqueror, which marked the turning point of the Anglo-Saxons. Now the shift was more to Anglo-Normans. Okay, so the language was divided. The particular age had division between the upper classes and the lower classes. The upper classes were more focused on Norman French, which became the language of the court and the administration and the upper classes. And if you heard people talking in Norman French, then those people were actually of the upper classes. You already knew that. And English became the a language of the commons. Okay, then there is what we see is feudalism. Feudalism is when there is dominant characteristics of English of kings and feudal lords, and they were your lords and they owned you, and you had to pay your own debts out of your own if you had agriculture, you had to pay your debts to the lord, because they were your owners, and therefore there was a centralized system of politics. There was a centralized system of how the power structure worked. The king was on the top, or the feudal lord was on the top, and you had to pay your debts to that feudal lord, that particular feudal lord. Then there were a lot of things politically that happened in this age which actually affected English literature or any other literature for that matter. For example, there was 100 Years' War with France, which lasted from 1337 to 1453. This particular war did not actually end. It actually came to some sort of they came to an agreement with the fact that they had a marriage between England and France. Because of that, the war ended, but the war didn't actually come to a conclusion. Then there was War of the Roses, which lasted from 1455 to 1485. Then there was Peasants' Revolt, and as we all know, if there are any wars that are happening, Peasants' Revolt is a given in any age. So Peasants' Revolt happened, and then there was was also Black Death, which influenced the political landscape. Black Death was a kind of a pandemic. What happened was that people actually were affected by black patches, and because of that there were a lot of deaths in the country, and which affected the political landscape. And when political landscape is affected, it affects the historical, the economic, the literature, everything is affected by it. Move on. Okay, so the literary characteristics of this age were, as I just told you, that the Norman Conquest happened in 1066, and because of which there was a lot of French influence on English literature. I just told you that the language of the upper classes changed from English to Norman French, because of which there was influence of French on the English literature. Obviously, it's marked by the works of Geoffrey Chaucer, who is also known as the father of English literature. He wrote Canterbury Tales. There is also the prologue to Canterbury Tales. We have other notable works in this age too, like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Morte d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. It is kind of this is a work which is actually about the bravery of King Arthur, and how he how he fought through different ages, and how about his conquests and all that. So basically the themes of this age were social backgrounds, which you see in Canterbury Tales, because Canterbury Tales is structured in a way that you see different different political backgrounds and different structures of people which are through power, where you see on the top you see the people that are the clergy, then you come down and you see the people that are soldiers, and then you come down, and there are different classifications of that particular people in that particular play, and there are certain characteristics that are shown in different characters, like monk, knight, priest. In everyone we see different characteristics, and how those particular particular characters existed in that age, which is Middle English or Age of Chaucer, and how they were in that particular period. Okay, obviously bravery was again one of the major themes of this particular age, because we've seen, for example, we were seeing Arthurian legends, and we were seeing Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. There were tales of bravery in this particular age. That was also one of the major themes of this Middle English age. Moving on, we see Renaissance. So Renaissance was actually, it didn't start particularly in Britain. It was more influenced by Italy and by France, which happened. So Renaissance originated in Italy, which was in 14th century, and then it spread to England in 15th century, late 15th century. There was the cultural and intellectual revival, and there was a renewed interest in the classical readings, classical learning, the humanism. Now, what is classical learning? Everyone knows what classical learning is. You go back to Rome and the Greeks, and there was a renewed interest in the Romans and the Greeks particularly, which you also see in some particular works of this age group. And there was a renewed interest in humanism. What was people more interested in were not the society, they were particularly interested in the humans, the particular individual spirits. Then this age was actually marked mostly by the Tudor dynasty, which was first it was Henry VII in 1485. He brought a lot of stability to the country through War of Roses. Then the reign was continued with Henry VIII, Edward VI, Mary I, and then Elizabeth I. Also, there was a lot of religious upheaval in this particular age, that was Renaissance. We also see the change from Catholic Church to Reformation to Protestants. We see a lot of change in the church in this particular age. After this I'm also going to make a video about about all the churches that existed in England and how there was the change from one church to another and what was the story behind it. So that I think it is very important in English literature for us to actually understand Christianity and church, because I think like that is one of the major background play that actually affects the whole of English literature. Moving on, these are the literary characteristics of Renaissance. It is marked by the revival of classical learning and humanism. It started in Europe, as I just told you that it was originated in Italy, but it later actually spread to England. And then we have the key figures, the major playwrights of this age, and which are still known as the major playwrights, which is William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, we have Edmund Spenser, we have Sir Philip Sidney, we have Ben Jonson in this age. There are a lot of good playwrights, especially in this age. Obviously, if we talk about the major works, we'll have to talk about Shakespeare, his Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, Midnight Summer's Dream. There are so many works, Tempest, and obviously we also have to, not just as a playwright, he was also famous as a sonneteer, right? We all know that. Then we have Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, we have Ben Jonson's Walpole. We have so many plays in this particular age that were written, and they were amazing. Then we have poetry of Edmund Spenser, particularly The Faerie Queene, which was also written for Elizabeth. Then let's move on to the next age. So basically the themes of this age was also, I mean, if you have read Shakespeare, you can understand everything was the theme of this particular age. Naturalism, supernaturalism, humanism, we can see themes of love, we can see themes of war, we can see bloodshed, we can see literally everything in this particular age. Then moving on to the 17th century. 17th century was a little, there was a little bit of upheaval when we say, because there was a lot of political conflict, religious conflict, including the English Civil War, which lasted from 1642 to 1651, which also resulted in the execution of King Charles I. But what happened after this was that Oliver Cromwell of the Commonwealth, he came, his party was established, and what happened was that Oliver Cromwell came to the throne, and there was an interim period where it lasted for 12 years, and Oliver Cromwell was the one who was taking charge. But after that, what happened was the upheaval actually it increased rather than decreasing. It increased, and because of which Oliver Cromwell was also beheaded, and Charles II came to the throne in 1660, which is also known as the Restoration, because it is the restoration of the monarchy, restoration of the kings. And Charles II, who was the son of Charles I, he came to the throne in 1660, and Oliver Cromwell was beheaded, and monarchy was restored. So the Stuart monarchs, this was marked by the Stuart dynasty, which is James I, Charles I, Charles II. There was tensions which was building between monarchy and parliament, just how I told you that Oliver Cromwell of the Commonwealth was actually taking charge. So obviously the parliament and the monarchy, they were at each other's throat, and there was a lot of problems between the two, and which led to the Civil War and the Glorious Revolution of 1688, which resulted in the establishment of parliamentary monarchy. So what is constitution of parliamentary monarchy is, as you can still see in Britain or England, what happens is that the political power doesn't exist completely with the monarchy. It doesn't completely exist with the parliament. What happens is that it is a combined effort of the monarchy and the parliament, because of which even now you can see in the contemporary times, and even in 2004, we have a king and we also have a prime minister in Britain. So that was actually established after the Glorious Revolution of 1688. Moving on, these are the literary characteristics of 17th century, which is divided. So basically this age is divided into two parts, which is Jacobean and Caroline. Jacobean lasted from 1603 to 1625, and Caroline lasts from 1625 to 1649. The major themes of this time period of the works was religious conflict, political instability, rise of empiricism, and rationalism. So what happened was that now now people were more concerned with rationality and reason rather than they were concerned with the religion. So this is also known as age of reason and age of enlightenment. What happened was that the people were enlightened now to actually take part in more of the recent stuff, which also was aligned with the fact that there were there were the developments of machines, and there were scientific developments, and there were industrial revolutions going on, and because of which people started believing in rationalism. Paradise Lost is one of the monumental works of epic poetry that was written in this age. We all know Paradise Lost was written by, tell me. It was written by John Milton. John Milton has written other works too, but Paradise Lost is one of the major works. Honest Blindness is his other major work. We have other notable writers like John Donne, who is known for metaphysical poetry. George Herbert, Andrew Marvell, all of them are known for metaphysical poetry. If you want to know what metaphysical poetry is, please comment down below. I'll make a detailed video of what metaphysical poetry is. Now, the next age is Augustan. Augustan age, the Augustan particularly takes its name from the ancient Rome Emperor Augustus, and there was this age actually sees a period of political stability and cultural achievement in England. So this was actually seen, this particular time period, we see the House of Hanover that took over the British throne. The Hanover succession happened in 1714, and which was the start of beginning from George I. The period is marked by Whig politics, the dominance of Whig politics. We all know by now that Britain actually has two dominant parties that existed at that time period. One was Whigs and the other were Tories, and this particular time period was marked by the Whig politics, and there was a gradual consolidation of parliamentary power. So as we know, in 1688 there was the Glorious Revolution that happened, because of which the whole parliamentary monarchy started, and because of which there was a need of the parliamentary power to be consolidated. And what would be the power of the parliament, what would be the power of the monarchy? Obviously, whenever there is a major change in a country, it takes a while for the people to actually consolidate and understand what was going on. All right. Then we have the literary characteristics of this time period. There was the revival of classical ideals and focus on reason, order, satire, wit, and social commentary. We see the rise of novels, and the key figures that were prominent in this age was Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, Daniel Defoe. The popular works were Rape of the Lock, which was written by Alexander Pope, Robinson Crusoe, which was written by Daniel Defoe, Pamela, which is written by Samuel Richardson. Then we have Gulliver Travels. So these are all the works that were particularly popular in that time period. And the most important thing that you need to remember about the literary characteristics of this particular age was that this period was affected mostly by social commentary, and the social commentary was not presented to us just as social commentary. It was presented to us as a satire, as a sarcasm, and that was repeatedly what was seen in every work. Even if you read Rape of the Lock, it's a fabulous work. You have to go through it if you're a student of English literature. So Rape of the Lock is basically about a girl who is of high standards, and she comes from a high class, and how she thinks she is the queen of the world, and how she gets dressed, and she wastes all her time in makeup and dresses, and so that is a social commentary on how the women of high class there were at that particular time period. Moving on, we have Romantic Age. So Romantic Age was characterized by French Revolution. So again, we have one of the incidents of Europe that is affecting the English literature. So French Revolution, which began in 1789, and the subsequent Napoleonic Wars, which lasted till 1815, and this inspired a revolution all over the Europe. So 1789 is when French Revolution started. It affected England as well. And also what you need to remember is Romantic Age is one of the most important ages, and you see major writers like Wordsworth and Shelley and all of them. Romantic Age is also we say that it started from 1789 because of the French Revolution, but in literature perspective, we can also say that Romantic Age kind of started from Preface to Lyrical Ballads, which came in 1789. Preface to Lyrical Ballads was written by William Wordsworth. Now, in England, there was a period of radicalism and political reform movements, not just in England, in France, in all over Europe. You can see that. And there was parliamentary reforms, and there was abolition of slavery, and the reign of King George III, the Regency era, and the early reign of Queen Victoria were the key political contexts. Okay, there is nothing major that happened. Now, Romantic Age, obviously this was the rejection of neoclassical. Before this age, the Augustan Age, what we were seeing was the neoclassical age, and we were more focused on the classical rules and what happened in the classical literature. But here we see that those are completely rejected, and the writers are more in favor of emotions and imagination and individual spirit of humans. Again, humanism was a major theme in this age. It is also known as the second Renaissance of English literature, because the literary characteristics of Renaissance and Romantic Age are pretty much similar to each other. Then the major poets were, we see more of poetry than prose work in this particular age. We study more of poetry works, as we all know: William Wordsworth, P.B. Shelley, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Lord Byron, John Keats, lyrical ballads, Coleridge's work, Rime of Ancient Mariner. We also see prose works that are very important, which is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. We also see Jane Austen. All the novels of Jane Austen are fabulous, and they're very important for UGC NET as well. Moving on, we see Victorian Age. Victorian Age is marked by the reign of Queen Victoria. The major things we see in this age is Industrial Revolution. There was rapid urbanization, rapid industrial revolution that was happening, which was leading to scientific advancements, and there were scientific innovations which were happening. And other than that, there was social reforms that were happening, because people were believing more in science, and that they don't want to be a part of the slavery, and they wanted the change in. So, till Victorian Age, you still see somewhat of a control of the upper classes, but at this point of time, in this particular age, you can see that the middle classes and the lower classes are starting to emerge more often. What even the writers were writing in this particular age, they were writing about common people. They were not just particularly writing about the higher classes. There was colonial expansion. That means that Britain's empire was expanding even to India. Then we see scientific progress. Darwin's theory came into play. Darwin's theory of evolution, that was started in this particular age. Then there is cultural reflourishing. Then these are the particular literary characteristics. So basically, the most important thing that you need to remember in literary characteristics about Victorian Age is that Victorian morality. So Victorian morality is that people were so concerned with moral values of society that they didn't concern themselves with particular individuals. They were more concerned about the Victorian morality. Victorian morality is basically the morals of Victorian era. So that happened, and there were a lot of structures, power structures that were building in this particular age, that women should not do this or women should not do that, and that lasted for the entirety of Victorian Age. The major novelists that you see in this particular age is Charles Dickens, Bronte sisters, Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, Anne Bronte. You see Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, you see Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, George Eliot, you see George Eliot's Middlemarch, obviously. Thomas Hardy, Oscar Wilde, these are popular novelists even now, I think so. Moving on, we have modern age. Modern age is basically characterized by the World War One, and there was also the build up to World War Two in this particular age. So this was characterized by a lot of trauma, a lot of degradation that we see in this particular age, which is also shown in the literary characteristics and the literary writings of this particular age. We see delusionment, trauma, obviously, because obviously war comes with all that, because when a war starts there is political upheaval, there is economic upheaval, and there is a lot of poverty that is happening, which has affected the common people. Then there is technological advancements. Obviously, urbanization is still happening in this particular age. There's political upheaval, obviously, with a war that comes hand in hand. Avant-garde movement was started in this particular cultural shift. We all know what avant-garde is. Avant-garde is something, so avant-garde, particularly that word means something new. So it doesn't matter if you are changing something, you are changing the traditional values and you're starting something new. It's called avant-garde. It's not particularly related to literature. It could be related to art, it could be related to politics, it could be related to anything. Then there is obviously post-war trauma. Moving on, these are the literary characteristics. And also we can see there is anxiety, there is interrogation. We have seen art for art's sake in this particular age, that we actually consider that art is what is important. We are not teaching art for life's sake, which means, so there are two concepts, art for art's sake and art for life's sake. Art for art's sake is that we are just using art or literature for that matter for the pleasure sake. We are not teaching art for life's sake. We are not teaching art to teach you something, to give you moral values. So art for art's sake, there was emergence of the working classes in this particular period. Obviously, psychology was developed in this time period too. We have psychoanalysis, we have stream of consciousness in this particular age. So this period was marked by experimentation with narrative forms. We've seen different narrative forms in this time period. Obviously, stream of consciousness is one of them too. We also see different, pastiche is also invented in this particular time period. We see diary entries, forms of, different narrative techniques that writers have used to deliver their own speeches. There was then the key figures are Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, T.S. Eliot, William Faulkner. Joyce's Ulysses is very important. Eliot's Wasteland is very important. Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. These are some fabulous works. Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. These are very important works according to English literature if you're considering for going for UGC NET. Then the postmodern age is marked by the Cold War tensions and geopolitical shifts. Everyone knows about the Cold War and how it happened between Russia and US, and it is marked by that and decolonization and globalization. Obviously, at this point of time, decolonization was coming to an end in different countries and different continents, and there is decolonization, because of which it also gave birth to post-colonial literature. And then we have globalization. Now the entire world is considered as a global village, which started in the postmodern era. Then we have civil rights movement, social change, technological advancement, information age, post-structuralism and deconstruction. Again, these are the two theories that come with literary theories. If you have read the literary theories, if you have not, there is also a video on particular theories on my channel. Please go and watch. They're very important. There is cultural fragmentation, popularism, and consumer culture. So fragmentation is when you consider not just your literature or your works or anything, your personality is fragmented. You don't feel like a whole. You feel like, the personality is split into different fragments all over the place, because of which you can't focus and your particular personality changes. It is also seen in different literatures as you go through literatures of the postmodern age. Then there is hyper-reality and skepticism towards the grand narratives. So grand narratives kind of subsided at this age, and we started believing in more of the common stuff, the more of the everyday stuff, which is also I think one of the great examples is Mrs. Dalloway of it, because we are more focused on what is particularly happening in everyday life rather than just what, how we started from the age where tales of bravery was so important and so common, but now we were more focused on the everyday life life and what was happening in an individual's life. Then these are the characteristics of postmodern age. It encompasses a diverse range of literary movements and styles, including postmodernism, magical realism, multicultural literature. The major writers are Salman Rushdie, Toni Morrison, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Margaret Atwood, J.K. Rowling, and there are themes of, I can tell you works of these that are very, very important. Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children, Toni Morrison's Beloved, or Bluer Sky. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is a very important writer who is writing about existentialism, and you need to read him. It's a given. Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, obviously. Then there are themes of identity, globalization, and technology that are prominent in the contemporary literature. So that was all about the history and the background of particular ages of English literature. I hope this helped you. I hope I was able to get through to you the information that was needed. If you need a detailed video of every age, please comment down below and I'll upload a video of every age going from age of Chaucer to the postmodern age. I think which is very, very important. Even if you're studying in your bachelor's or master's for English literature, this is very, very important. So that was it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel.